Hi, I'm Kim.
I'm Hayden.
I'm Brad.
We're 6260 Ohana, California. Today we're going to talk about those newly released guidelines from DVC about what's going to happen to those people that had banked points or had expired vacations due to the current situation. We won't give it power by using words. Anyways, but those people that are really kind of what's going to happen and really how it's going to affect more people than what maybe we thought would going forward. So we're going to kind of dive into that and share what we kind of figured out about it and what our conversations are and what we think what this could mean for all of us. So please don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow along with our Ohana. Okay, so first we're going to talk about those expiring points on the affected bookings. So if you had points that you weren't going to use during that time but were due to expire, those are still going to expire. Those don't change. Those people let them go by the wayside and there's no retrieving those if there wasn't a canceled vacation. The first group we're going to talk about is 2018 April and June banked points that are due to expire because of the closure. Those are now going to be extended until 6 months to the expiration date. So that'll be October and December of this year.
The important thing is to remember you had a reservation that was canceled due to the virus to be able to be eligible for that 6 months extension.
And the same thing is going to apply to 2019 for April and June. They're now going to have 1 year from that expiration date to use their points. But that's kind of revealing because now, to me, that means the DVC is thinking more along the lines of maybe late June into July, August, and not opening. Because they're not talking about August use years yet. So there's the potential for August to still open, July still to open. June, it seems like, is a little up in the air.
From what I'm getting from the letter, since they labeled June, I don't think that they probably are planning that June might be in doubt at this point.
Right, and I think it's just easier to include June at this point. It just allows more flexibility for them. But I think that's an interesting thought when you're looking about vacations this summer. Who knows with that? These are the reservations that were booked from March 12th when the resorts closed all the way until whenever they open again. So those are the ones that had banked points from 2018 or 19 that those limitations will be placed. So going forward, this now affects more people. Now the new rule is for the time being, as of today forward, this doesn't really affect people that already have vacations booked and used points from next year that they've already borrowed from 2021. That won't change. They're not going to take them away. But from this point forward, you can only borrow up to 50% of your points.
Yeah, and that's actually Terry in her letter explained that is actually in the house rules and stipulations of your contract. So it is something that a lot of us weren't aware of. I wasn't aware of it until I saw the letter. I was like, oh, wow.
Right. And then the other thing to think about with that is that now people that have smaller contracts, this is really maybe have effect, especially in consideration of next year is Magic Kingdom's 50th anniversary. And a lot of people had big trips planned because of that.
Yeah, when we're talking about smaller contracts, there's a lot of people that buy a small contract and they bank and borrow once every 3 years to make a vacation or two. It's going to make it a lot harder on them to have that full time.
Right. So they either, maybe they're not going to get the rooms that they want, maybe the length of stay they want, or maybe they're going to have to push off their vacation for a year. So this is going to have a larger effect for a longer time than what most people realize. And I think it's going to have a longer effect the longer the DVC resorts are closed. So I think they're going to be really anxious to get them back open again. What that means and how they mean, maybe they'll do like right before the closure where they open up the resorts for a little while first and then the parks. That's always a possibility.
So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do because in Shanghai, they really limited the number of people coming in through the parks. And I believe it was also who had reservations.
So Brad and I, in our talks, we've kind of thought that maybe they're going to reopen Disney World to people that are staying on property first that have existing reservations at the time they decide to open.
And again, this is just pure speculation.
Yeah. But that makes the most amount of sense because people have already booked flights. They booked, instead of locals, I mean, locals, and I understand because there's an argument for both sides. There's either let locals come in first and do day trips, see how things work, close, open, micromanage what needs to be fixed, Or there's a thought of we're losing tons of money on DVC, having problems, regular room resorts. So I could see them saying maybe outside resorts and hotels not opening to at first, but just to the Disney hotels and resorts. And that would be another perk of why you stay on property.
Yeah, another thing is to be aware of is that we would be shut out here in California if that was the case too.
To Disneyland.
So it's something that would affect us on either way.
Right.
So we see both sides of this.
Right, because we're anxious to go running back to Disneyland as soon as it opens as well. So that's just kind of our feeling. So we feel the arguments on both sides because both sides want to say we want to open first, we want first access. We get it.
That and the other thing is to be aware of is that since we're talking about two different coasts, because you're talking about Florida and California, is that California, we may be locked down longer than Florida.
Right. Different resorts may reopen at different times.
And the Grand Californian is, as we all know, if you ever tried to make one, unless you're an owner at the Grand Californian, it's extremely hard to get more than a couple days up there.
It is. But you know what? You can and can't. It just kind of depends. And luck of the draw, some wait list, maybe a night here or there. But it's a little bit more tough.
Fingers crossed.
That was Brad. Anyway, so the other thing is you also have to look at different states. I mean, we're not just talking Disney World, Disneyland. We're also talking Alani and Hilton Head. So those are all.
That brings us into 4 states now.
It affects 4 states. So however that goes and however their government and whoever decides to reopen, that will be kind of what to look at. And maybe some resorts open sooner than others. So the other thing you have to think about is now all those people that fell into those 2018 and 19 points are expiring. Now they have to use it before October and December. But the problem is that's hopefully schools will be reopened. So now a lot of parents and people that work in the school system, schedules that have to reflect around school schedules. Now that makes it a bigger rush. It makes it harder, more competitive, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's for the next 6 months, it's going to be extremely hard, even during the school times, because I believe a lot of people had a lot of vacations canceled.
Yes.
So they're going to be using their airline credits or whatever they can.
It was spring break.
We have to use them or we're going to lose them. So I think there's going to be a rush for this time.
There is. And that really brings up the argument for the home resorts. Is you're going to have that priority for the next year, your home resort. And if you want to go before all this kind of wanes out and evens out, then that's where this argument for home resort is really going to pay off. I am perfectly happy staying at our home resort of the Poly or Animal Kingdom Lodge. So there's some that I wouldn't have wanted as my first choice.
So that's why this is the perfect example of saying when you buy DVC, make sure you love your home resort.
Exactly. So that's one thing that I think the home resort is going to be really important this next year. That 11-month window, it's going to get competitive. And maybe the 7-month window, when people start swapping around, things will get better. But I think there's going to be more home resort stays this year. So hopefully you like your home resort. And then the last thing that was talked about was annual dues. Okay, they've been closed for knocking on the door of a month and a half to 2 months almost.
I'd be betting we're probably seeing 2 months to 3 months.
Yeah, so you're talking about a quarter of the fiscal year of DVC being closed. That's massive. So what do they do? Okay, so you're talking about a third of the fiscal financial year being disrupted, closed, which of course, less water usage, less electricity, less staff, less everything, supplies. So the question has been, how is this going to be balanced out?
So Terry explained in her letter that if the resort was operating at a surplus for the end of the year, that surplus, instead of going into the bank that they usually hold it for future reasons, it's a big hurricane,
upgrades, like as far as resort upgrades, like what needs to be done for maintenance.
That in December that they would issue a refund back to the owners.
So it's mid-December. It's actually a credit towards your 2021 dues. So it's not actually you're going to get.
Credit?
Yeah, it's a credit. Oh. So you're not getting cash back. So that's something to kind of keep in mind.
And this is something they don't normally do. But she also explained in that same sentence that things are going to change. There's going to be probably more procedures that need to do.
So I'm assuming that means they're going to need more mousekeeping. They're going to need more supplies to keep things clean. I think you're going to see Disney's already done an amazing job at trying to clean. It's going to be taken to a higher level is what the thought is, at least until they get a handle on things.
Yeah. So we're seeing a whole bunch of changes, and hopefully, as also letter said, that this is not going to be a long drawn out thing, that it's going to be a temporary solution until they can have enough availability open.
This is probably a 2021 to 2022 problem.
Yeah.
Because of the points, having extra, what do people do when they've had to move around their vacations? They could only borrow 50%. So that just kind of, everybody's got to readjust.
Yeah, and I really don't think everybody's going to be happy in any of all this way it's adjusted. Unfortunately, Disney's hands are tied by state laws and everything that they can legally do, and this is probably the best compromise they could come up for everybody.
Yeah, but the one thing is, this next year, remember, first of all, this is not DVC's fault. They did not come up with this thing. It was not their fault. They're struggling and suffering as well. They're doing the best they can. I'm sure that they tried various scenarios. What do we do? It was going to help people that had banked points expire to now give them another option. I don't think any of us really forecasted this happening per se, but it really, the name of the game is to be flexible and really try to make the most out of what we have and enjoy your DVC contracts. It's not ideal at the moment, but hopefully we can all be as gracious as possible under these difficult times.
So, talking of other options out there, there's also the option of RCI.
We did a video on it. Of course, at that time, it was either kind of lose your points or not, but we always said that Disney could come back and change that, and things change with Disney all the time.
But all the rest of the policies are up to date as far as how you would use your points to RCI and what their procedures are.
Correct. So that's just an idea of other things that you could do with points. If you're not happy with the room availability, if you don't know what else to do, and you want to talk to DVC, if you did put your points into RCI, I am hearing that they are allowing those points to be untaken at this time from Disney. So that, and this is temporary for the people that were in this kind of up in the air time, and DVC was pushing for everybody to push their points into RCI. Really, there wasn't any guidance of what they're going to do, if they were going to do anything. So that's kind of something, if you're not happy with what's available, or you're going to lose your points, or, you know, if you combined and bank and all this stuff, it's just not going to work out. It's another option. Not the best of options, but it's an option.
And warning, your bank points you can't use towards RCI. It has to be your current use year points.
Correct.
So watch that video down below. It actually goes through what your procedures would be.
All right. So with that, we're going to say goodbye and
Find your magic.
Bye, everyone.